The Exuviae of Gods Part 2 is the latest EP from Adelaide, Australia-based funeral doom metal band Mournful Congregation. Now, this is a favorite of mine in general as far as extreme doom metal goes, and a band that I followed for many, many years. So, of course, I have nothing but positive things to say about this record, and only because they've kept up the same high level of quality since they began, and that quality of songwriting goes all the way back to their first couple of demos in the mid 90s. And I emphasize that because they've once again re recorded in the first half of An Epic Dream of Desire, their second demo tape from 1995. And they've sort of, so between these two parts of this two LP, mini LP, if you will, entrance, they find a way to fuse their where they're at now, where they've been in the last several years, and where they were back in 1995. I don't know if this is like a point of performance, is sort of showing that like the quality of what they were doing back then was exactly what they're doing now, but in a lot of ways it presents a very clear distinction of what Funeral Doom was when it was emerging from the shadows and what it is now, that it sort of has reached not necessarily the mainstream, but certainly the heavy music zeitgeist. Um, Not an easy thing to work into popular music at all, and it never really will. But uh, we definitely get the sense of what nowadays Mournful Congregation is, not having a great distance from where they were back in the early 90s, and that this music does stand up in terms of, well, they're just big doom metal songs that are very somber and have a slower pace. So the fact that Mournful Congregation have always written good doom metal songs certainly carries throughout the ages. And that's kind of the whole idea here, is that they're just still great at what they do. They still write great doom metal songs, and very much informed by traditional doom metal and melodic death doom metal, but carrying some of the tradition of funeral doom metal in terms of pace and just sensibilities of how the arrangements go. They have a knack, they have a signature feeling that is obviously difficult to describe, but you'll get it if you're a fan of that style. So we'll get to a quick clip here and kind of just wrap things up pretty quickly. There's not that much to say. So the four songs that are new originals from part one and part two of the Exuviae of Gods are certainly some of just kind of the better work we've heard from the band, which has always been great. It's kind of like, um, you know, this is a step in between full length albums, but it doesn't feel like it so much as it is a new full length split between two pieces with a re recording of a demo in the middle. So this doesn't feel like B sides, it doesn't feel like castaways. It certainly feels like they continue the direction of the Incubus of Karma in many ways, but they've expanded some of the harmonized guitar solos. They've kicked into some more of the mid-paced death doom that you kind of want from this band, and they've sped up the pace just a little bit for the sake of those guitar harmonies, and all of it being readable as extreme doom metal songs, and not so squarely funeral doom outside of what you'd expect from Mournful Congregation. So the pieces are elaborate, expressive, somber as much as they are like almost a little bit inspired and uplifting in a lot of ways. There's a surreal mix of the downtrodden and the uplifting. So that's really what translates here on this. This is the way that I see it is part two is side B, basically, and on a double LP. And so we got the bigger sort of mountain built on the first part, and now we get the topple down the mountain on this one, and you really feel that on the Paling Crest. It's a on 20-minute full side song, and it juxtaposes or sidles well next to the Forbidden Abysm, which is more of it's about a 9-minute kind of death doom metal song, which is very strong in general. I mean, nothing they've ever put out has particularly been average or typical or anything. It's sort of a standard bearer of a band, and the quality is upheld here. There's really no knock here, other than maybe I think the thing to do is to reflect on these two parts coming together into one entity, because they are kind of set up that way. So we have the first, so the second part of the second demo was the last part of the first part, right? So the first part of the second demo is the first part of the second part, right? So what that means is this record starts off with a re-recording of the song of the opener from the first demo, whereas the first part of the Exuviae of Gods closed with the closer of the second demo. And what that means is that when you listen to these parts of the Exuviae of God back to back, you get basically the full demo out of order in the middle of the full listen. And this reads like a second act in the full album. And the songs that are around it, the bookends, which are there's quite a lot there. They they enhance the effect that those two songs create when they're pushed into those spaces. And you'll see some of the instrumentation sort of picks some of that up from those songs and feeds it into those new pieces. And I don't know if that was intentional or what, but like the use of acoustic guitars and whatnot certainly creates a feeling on the second record as opposed to the first record, which was a little bit more upfront with its sort of aggressive doom metal side. So there's sort of a diptych of albums here that work really well together, but have sort of a crisscrossed bit of the old Mournful Congregation feeling in there too. So pretty interesting as a full listen, and maybe it's not something that you'd have to analyze and dig into too hard. But if you're a fan of Mournful Congregation, this is a pretty essential release, and it does feel like if you pair these two albums, you're getting a little bit of an album plus. You're getting a full length's worth of Funeral Doom that is new from these guys, and you're getting a new re-recording of an old, well-loved demo tape, minus the 2-minute instrumental in between the songs. So, for me, there's a lot of value in that. That's, because I am a fan of the band and have been for a long time. There's seeing those songs transformed wasn't really all that impressive to start on the first side, but then when they came together, and I listened to the whole thing, part one to part two, it made more sense, and the continuity there was pretty strong. So anyway, it's a very high recommendation. I wrote a little bit about it in the review you can check out, and you can listen to the album tomorrow.